We have three fantastic composers tonight. I will now introduce Jan Kaczmarek, Mark Isham. This is the trumpet composer panel. We also have Terence Blanchard, and finally, Chris Douridas. I'm going to turn it over to Chris. Thank you.
Before we get started, I want to thank the Sundance Institute and the Time Warner Foundation for putting on this panel. I want to get into process, and I want to talk about how, you know, for every composer, there's that first film, or it's a trial by fire, and you're figuring things out on your feet, and how that's changed over the years.
Well, my process in the very first film, because I was very similar, I sort of just got asked out of the blue to write a film score, and no training. And
Never Cry Wolf?
Never Cry Wolf.
Yep.
No training whatsoever, and scared to death. And I was tenacious, though, and I realized it was an opportunity, and I can't screw this up. So it was like 4.5 months, 7 days a week, 18-hour days, until the director said, "You're done." But the process was very simple for me because, and I think this came from my background in electronic music, is that sound, just the quality of a sound was the first inspiring thing to me. And so I use that as just the basic way of starting. And I still, to this day, that's basically my first step, is what's the sound of this score? What's the texture? You know, you look at the screen and you say, well, he shot all this thing in blues and greens. Well, I want to do the same thing. What's my blues and greens for this picture?
I'm really curious because we have three composers here who come from very different backgrounds, and I'm always fascinated by how the origins of an artist sort of propelled them into their work and helped them develop a voice. Jan, obviously you were born in Poland. You actually studied law, and you were pursuing a career as a diplomat, and that you turned your back on that for political reasons and looked to music as a way to express yourself.
I started studying law, thinking that this is my world, but being a diplomat in communist country meant more being a KGB agent than anything else. So it was a rather miserable discovery and ruined my spirit. I went into deep, profound depression, and I started playing improvised music. And the freedom helped me to develop my own voice. In a way, it was a wise choice, because being a lawyer, I would be a prisoner, and being an artist, I could go to West Berlin, drink my first cappuccino, then to Copenhagen, and this is something which kind of compensates for terrible things which we were living through as well.
Terence?
Well, it's rather boring compared to his story. I was over here riveted, like, man, keep talking. Wow. Growing up in New Orleans, I think, was a big help in one regard, like being a jazz musician. I don't know, Mark could talk about this too. Being a jazz musician, man, you have to learn how to think on your feet when you're on the bandstand. When I got in this business, I didn't know anything about film composition, but I took the same process of learning jazz and I put it into the film scoring area. And the interesting thing about it now is that I got to a certain point in my life where the film thing started really informing what I do with my jazz band. When I started working in film, the thing that I started to really think about was like the overall story. When people come to hear the band, I don't want us to sound like we're choosing from a collection, a library of tunes. I want the musical experience to be very dramatic, like it would be if you were watching a film. Everything is based on how previous things will occur. If we start a tune and the guys play a certain way, then it informs me that I should think about moving this way. And it all comes from working in film and working with directors and listening to them talk about shape and the arc of the story.
When you first have your first creative meeting with directors, how do you like a director to talk to you?
The worst thing they could ever tell you is, this is what I want.
The temp, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I worked with a director one time who told me, I'm looking for this gospel bluesy thing, and he played me a track, and it was nowhere close to being gospel or blues, you know? So I guess, you know, I guess the best thing that can happen is for somebody to trust you. Talk to me about the story, and then trust that I can translate that into some type of musical form.
I would just add something to this. I think there's something even worse than that. When somebody tells you, disregard the temp track, you know, I couldn't care less about the temp track. And then you learn this is exactly what
Yeah.
when you already...
Exactly.
How about you, Mark?
I was just going to offer that one of the many things I've always enjoyed about working with Robert Redford is that he talks to me the way he would talk to his actors. He talks about character, he talks about story development, he talks about arc, and he never talks about B-flat major or I love the Schubert string quartets, or anything. He gives the story information the same way he would give to his cinematographer, maybe even the screenwriter, and it works beautifully.
Because he's coming as an actor to the project.
Yeah, that's the way he understands his film, and he doesn't try to put some false understanding of what I do and how it might help me. He just takes a beautiful rendition of how he wants to tell it, and the pace and the intensity and the various aspects that he would communicate to every storyteller that's on the team.
Fantastic. I thank you guys for being here. Thanks for Jan Kaczmarek, Mark Isham, Terence Blanchard. Thank you.